So I own an EV, and today I got an update on the software. And I do have dogs, and I'm very fond of dogs. I have two of my personal, and I foster all the time. So one of the features I was sold on for this car was the fact that it had a dog mode, and it allowed you to keep the dogs in the car and lock the car, but the temperature will be regulated too so that they're comfortable. So that was one of the features that I was sold on when I bought that car. And today I received a notification that the software update. One of the software updates is that the dog mode has been renamed to pet mode, so that it's inclusive of all the pets that could be there in the car, or that we are. And I thought that came from a place of empathy, and I was really, really happy.
Most customer success teams will tell you they lead with empathy. It's in the mission statement, it's in the job description, it might even be on a poster somewhere in the office. But empathy is a value and empathy is a practice are two completely different things. And the gap between those two things, between the intention and the execution, is exactly where customer relationships start to fall apart. My guest today has spent 15 years building learning ecosystems across some of the most complex environments you can imagine, from SaaS companies to global manufacturers to media conglomerates and global energy companies. And somewhere along the way, she landed on a belief that's changed how she works. She believes that empathy isn't something that you feel about your customers. It's something that you build into your systems before program launches, before the training is designed, before a single piece of content gets created. Akila Giridharan is a consultant and director of learning and development who's made a deliberate shift from internal talent development into customer education. And the reason that she made that move tells you everything you need to know about what drives her. She didn't want to be adjacent to growth. She wanted to be responsible for the growth. And in this conversation, we talked about what she found when she left the office and actually went into the field, and why that field observation and performance gap analysis actually uncovered things that were nothing like what the leadership had asked her to build for. We talk about the difference between customer education and enablement and why that matters more than most teams realize. And we discuss how she made a case for L&D in a boardroom full of people who only speak numbers. She closed with something I honestly didn't expect, and it's a line that ended up being the perfect way to describe what this show is all about. This is episode 2 of Scaling Trust. I'm your host, Matt Tidwell. Let's get into it. Akila, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, this is really good. I'm super appreciative of you making time on a Friday afternoon to get together. I think our audience has a lot to learn from you today. So I couldn't be more excited. For context, I would love for you to just share a little bit about your background, your history. If someone goes to your LinkedIn page, they'll see that you've had just quite a career, everything from technical training to quality assurance engineering, being a business owner, actually responsible for P&Ls and all of that, being a consultant, working for some of the largest names in the industry like Warner Brothers, energy companies like Sonnen. Just give us the high level. Just share a little bit about your history for context, and we'll get into the interview.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I've been in learning and development forever, but that's great because that's where I want to be, and I love being here. Having said that, I started off, like you said, as a technical trainer, but and moved my way up and went through the entire. I think I've gone through the entire spectrum of the learning life cycle. Starting from down at the bottom with the online with the in-person facilitation, and moving up the ladder and getting into strategy and actually learning design and building learning ecosystems. Yes, like you rightly pointed out, I have worked with big names. I have worked with small startups. I have had my own company too. But in all this, the common thread is I have loved building programs from the ground up. And that's been, I think I've finally figured out that's my specialty, is actually looking at the problem and trying to build a learning solution that is very unique to the problem, really impacting the business outcome in that way. So I'm very happy to be here. My last position at Sonnen Inc. was at customer education, which is again something that I really, really am excited about. And I feel there is a whole lot of potential for all of us to contribute.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And it's not often, maybe this will become a trend as more and more
Mhm.
folks start their businesses, but it's not often that you find someone in customer education that has worked in the 1,000+ employee companies, has also been a small business owner, has also been in the engineering side of the house. I mean, that's just such a diverse skill set. And I think, I don't know, I hope that we get some of those different perspectives from you today, because so many of us are either consultants full time and we're not in the engineering seat, or
Mhm.
we are learning and development, and we have a totally different strategy, totally different vocabulary, language sometimes. Or if we're in the customer education seat, I feel like a lot of us are trying to figure out what title we're supposed to have and like what KPI we're supposed to move. So
Right.
maybe we can jump into some of that today. But I
Right.
guess maybe to kick it off, I'm curious, with the background in L&D that you have, what was the triggering event, or like what was the experience that got you interested in customer education? What made you move in that direction versus staying in the leadership and talent development world that you were in?
Great question. So customer education, I think I joined when I joined this company. I think customer education was kind of getting a little bit building some kind of momentum from the customer success category, and they like, okay, what else can we do? And customer education was getting right there, and into many boardroom conversations. So I got in at a perfect time with this company to help build this function from the ground up. And
Mm,
I'm like, when I got in, I was like, okay, how hard can it be? It's going to be, it's education, it's learning and development, which I've done for so many years. But then when I got in and really really looked into it and found just the need or the requirement, I felt
yeah,
that this was such a dynamic role with so many possibilities and so much potential. And the misconception has always been, okay, you have an LMS, your learning management system, and then you put some bunch of training there, create a certification pathway, and that's your training, and you're done. But I felt there was so much more above and beyond what actually was being portrayed or being seen. So
yeah,
I was really excited by the opportunity, and I felt this was a unique opportunity for me to give solutions that were enhanced product adoption and really make a difference on the bottom line. I always go with the mantra that, you could have the best products in the world, the best service in the world, but what's the point if the customers don't know how to use it? And that's where I felt my purpose and I think, my passion to develop customer education to such a point where it becomes a need of the hour to the success of any enterprise.
yeah. That's incredible. I think
Mhm.
I relate with you in that as well. As far as, I have a background in education, but the idea of working inside of product companies or working alongside product companies and really helping build kind of a customer centric part of the organization, or at least being the
Mhm.
voice of the customer in rooms that traditionally didn't have that voice, at least
Exactly.
initially. I think a lot of folks have changed since I started in 2013, and the market's very different now, but at that time it was kind of a unique thing. But that idea around driving customers to outcomes, like helping them win, that like spirit of that in customer education, equipping them for success, not just not just helping them when they have a problem, but
Exactly.
proactively enabling their success. I think that is a shared vision probably by everybody who gets a chance to be in a customer education seat or department, and I think that's probably what drives us. So that's
Absolutely.
wonderful. When you and I first met, you mentioned, I believe it was while you were at Sonnen, you actually went out into the field with some of the partners that were doing like installation for the energy company, um, and it was pretty interesting. Hopefully, I get this correct. You correct me if I'm wrong. Kick me if I'm wrong. But you essentially got a brief for a training program, and they said we need to make this, and not necessarily instead of doing that, but alongside doing that, you actually went out into the field and said, okay, let me actually see what we need, and you did a proper needs assessment, kind of a performance gap analysis. What did that process teach you about corporate education, like customer education at the corporate
Mhm.
level, and or the process of designing impactful experiences versus check the box experiences.
Yeah, if you check my LinkedIn posts, I'm all about not doing the checkbox training and but just, being, really mindful about performance outcomes and what we want to achieve there. With this assignment that I had at Sonnen, it was yeah, this was the leadership ask. We are getting a product out right now. And you need to create a certification program, a certification learning pathway for our installers. We were a B2B company, and our installers for our customers, and help them, install so that they can install the product successfully at the customer sites. So, okay, I was like, okay, we have to build another training program. But then it struck me, okay, let me first understand the customer. Let me find out exactly what, who they are, how do they learn, and, what exactly do they need, right? Before I go ahead, okay, tell me the product and let's start devising the step by step instructions for installation, So there is where I found the actual inspiration for what actually happens in the field, and and that was the turning point in devising my strategy. So yeah, we can be in offices, we collaborate with the, all our teams, our product teams, engineering teams, but we are just going by one side of the story. I wanted to get to the other side and really listen to the needs of the learner rather than from the point of view of what the business needs. I felt there was a lot of disconnect, and I was happy to do. It was about, I think, about a month worth of field installs, like pilot installations that I witnessed, talking to learners, observing how they actually install the products, which gave me a lot of insight as to, hey, I need to focus more on this. Maybe I need a video here which would really allay all their fears on, whatever it is they're trying to do, especially from safety purposes. So, although it was an exercise that was about 2 to 3 months, I was happy to get the leadership buy-in and, get that time in order to actually create impactful learning. And I thought the first step was to understand the needs of the learner. And so, yeah, the field, the experience in the field was really priceless for me to build the training.
I love the way you framed that, where you said, um, you said we're only hearing one side of the story,
Yep.
and I think that that is something that even I forget to consider at times because we
Mhm.
know, like especially in the technology world, we know we have, you know, a goal to meet. We know we have a
Mhm.
customer to win. We know we
Mhm.
have clients to make happy to keep our
Mhm.
ARR going and all that stuff.
Yep.
But you mentioned the idea of learning everything that happens outside of that product, like the day in the life of story. I would bet, yeah, I'm not really a betting person, but I would bet that more often than not, we as customer education or as success or even as founders and co-founders, in business, haven't done enough work in
Mhm.
understanding the day of the life of the customer. We just
Yeah.
kind of say, well, let's give them different modalities. Let's have it live. Let's have it on demand. Let's throw it on YouTube. Let's put it in an LMS. Let's have a tooltip.
Yep.
Great. We got modalities, but actually spending the energy to go like, what is your world like? What do you do on a Monday morning? And like
Exactly.
understand that level of detail. I bet the companies that do that win a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was this instance actually that really was kind of took our strategy a different direction, so to speak, where we have installers in Puerto Rico, and so you would say, hey, it's a US state, but US territory, no problem, they would know English. But then when I really conversed with them, and it was very, very insightful. I was taken aback that yes, they don't know English, they're more Spanish speaking population, and they were really not engaging with my learning. It was just like because everything was in English, right?
Yeah.
The only thing they were engaging with were the videos which showed them what is to be done at what point of time. But again, those videos were not all, like every step. right?
Yeah.
So that really opened my eyes saying, hey, okay, well, if a lot of our population is going to be Spanish speaking, we definitely need some translation and some voiceovers to ensure that they understand the, nuances of the product installation. So that I've never got sitting in my office talking to products and, talking to engineering, because they are just talking about the product, but they're not talking about the customer experience or the learner experience per se.
So what did you do in that situation? Did you engage like translation
Yeah.
resources and do a completely separate path, or how did you overcome that?
Yeah, AI to the rescue.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, AI is here. I mean, it's a big topic nowadays, and yeah, I had to be creative. Of course, budget constraints, time constraints, development, because we were ready to launch, and
Yeah.
and I just really, really felt that if this is going to be even remotely impactful, it is important that it's also inclusive of the population that's going to really install our products. And so I had to be creative, and of course, generative AI. We have some amazing tools and technologies nowadays to the rescue, and yeah, and use them in order to get the product out in live time in Spanish with a new learning pathway. Yeah.
I love it. There's some lessons buried in there, I think, not only the region or the country, as you mentioned, but the end user, especially in an industry like where you served in energy. But I could see all of the
Yeah.
manufacturing industries. I could see all of the logistics industries. Any of those that have such a diverse workforce and language and skill sets and things like that. And when you're dealing with such high risk products,
Yep.
like I would imagine, you couldn't really mess up what the product installation that you all
Absolutely. I
had,
mean,
otherwise it would be
it's
catastrophic.
all
So,
because of language and communication, right? You don't
right.
want that to be a barrier at all.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
you know,
That's
yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Well, speaking of barriers, you mentioned when we first met, you mentioned the idea around um, empathy and having empathy for learners. And even as you speak now, I think that's something else that's coming through. And I think a lot of customer success teams probably have something about empathy in like their mission statement or what their teams do, or we lead with empathy, or we have the voice of the customer. But like, where do you actually see the gap between the intention of that, like we want to be empathetic for our customers, and then the actual application of that in the business, like when there's deadlines, when there's costs, when there's all those considerations, like how does empathy show up in customer success?
Oh, that's my favorite topic. That empathy, empathy in leadership, empathy in customer success, and yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. I think everybody has empathy as a fashionable, as a phrase in a mission statement, but not everybody gets it right. Of course, I mean, we all know what empathy is. It is, understanding the customers, understanding where he's coming from, the pain points, and really stepping into their shoes in order to, it could be the objective could be anything. It could be selling the product or teaching how to use the product. It could be anything, right? So in customer success, I think it's one of the top skills that we need to develop in order
Mm.
to really understand what the customer is going through when they're engaging with the product. It could be argued that, oh, there's no way we can quantify empathy, but I think we can, using so many performance metrics that we have, and how it has played a role in so many success stories. Take Microsoft, for instance. The CEO is so, I guess, famous for being an empathetic leader, and he has really, I guess, something that he's famously said is that you don't build programs saying that you have empathy after the fact, right? You need to really ensure you want to
Yeah.
build programs, whatever the programs may be. First, having the empathy and then build the programs. I think we have it the other way around and say, hey, we are very empathetic. When you have the customer success, the support people, they say, hey, I'm very sorry. I do understand what you're going through, but I think they don't. Because if they did, they would not be there in the first place. So that is largely misunderstood as to where empathy should come in the entire uh, business workflow, if you will, whatever you're trying to develop or create.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's interesting if I could follow up on that, because this is a really unique um, conversation. This is a unique lens to view the problem set of customer retention. In your work and in your experience, where has that empathy come from? It feels like, based on what you just said, using the Microsoft as the example,
Yeah.
that the CEO, the founders, the leadership
Mhm.
has to essentially initiate that point of view, that perspective, in
Mhm.
order for the larger team to adopt it. How have you seen that play out? Do you have any examples, or could you share maybe an example of that actually in practice?
You mean of empathy being played out in real life?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, that was a pretty vague question. Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Um, Well, actually, I have a funny story today morning, and I felt there was a lot of empathy in that. So I own an EV, and today I got an update on the software. And I do have dogs, and I'm very fond of dogs. I have two of my personal, and I foster all the time. So one of the features I was sold on for this car was the fact that it had a dog mode, and it allowed you to keep the dogs in the car and lock the car, but the temperature will be will be regulated too, so that they're comfortable. So that was the one of the features that I was sold on when I bought that car. And today I received a notification that the software update, one of the software updates is that the dog mode has been renamed to pet mode, so that it's inclusive of all the pets that could be there in the car, or that we are. And I thought that came from a place of empathy, and I was really, really happy. I mean, it may not touch the entire population. I'm like, okay, I don't know what she's talking about. I mean, it's just a small population, but I think it's an excellent example of how they have led the business with empathy, where they have realized that, hey, I mean, it's not like, a cat owner is not going to use the dog mode just because it says dog mode. But the fact that they have recognized that, and they have a little, it says pet mode, and they have different avatars, where you can say it's a cat or whatever you have in there, a hedgehog, whatever it
I've
is.
got a
And
giraffe.
you can
Yep.
have an avatar and say, hey, I'm just chilling out here, and it's okay because the temperature is whatever. I thought that was a very, very nice gesture. And and that, something very small, it could be the smallest things, and that's how they lead with empathy. Not because like 100,000 customers told you, hey, the dog has to be renamed to pet, otherwise we're not buying the car. It was
Yeah.
about them really looking into, hey, who are our customers? Yeah, we don't really have dogs only as pets, we have others too, let's change it. I thought that was something that was a perfect example of empathy.
I love that. And how do you think, it's easy to think like the squishy feely, like empathy, interpersonal things, but you're talking about empathy in the details of
Yeah,
interfaces, like in the small things. How do you
absolutely.
think that increases the trust or the perception of the brand in customer opinion?
Oh, that I think definitely there is a huge uptick in brands that really lead with empathy. This
Mm,
there's this example that I told you, and even in my organization, when I have been building learnings or learning systems, I have definitely tried to see not only from our customers, that is our installers who are installing the products, but also from the point of view of the end customers who are using our products, that is our homeowners, where into whose homes these battery systems are going in. So things
mm,
such as there's this energy system, in your garage, and it's supposed to work a certain way, but I don't know, there are all these colors that come up all the time, and I don't know what they mean. Well, putting a small kind of a quick cheat sheet or a quick reference guide on the panel of that system gives the customer so much of information that they know, okay, they don't have to panic whenever that changes color and something's going on with that
Yeah.
system, is leading with empathy, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because I have foreseen the problems that probably a customer who doesn't have day-to-day interaction with the system needs to know that, hey, okay, everything's all right with this. There's nothing, no need to panic. And I need to panic only when the colors change a certain way. Otherwise, it's all okay. And,
Yeah.
Sonnen's got my back and those kinds of things is, I think, are small, very small things. A quick reference guide, 2 minutes. I mean, not 2 minutes, actually, but maybe a day or two worth of work. But I think that makes a huge difference in product adoption, in the customer satisfaction scores. It definitely percolates to all these different performance metrics that we see today in the field of customer success.
That's perfect. My goodness. And what's fascinating is I'm kind of picking up on this, and the audience probably is too, as they hear your
Mhm.
story, is you had essentially multiple business lines within the customer education program. You created materials designed specifically for the end users who receive the energy system in their home, and you designed it for the installation
Mhm.
partners as well. Did you view those as two like separate catalogs, two separate product lines, two separate initiatives, or how did you navigate creating, reusing, multi-purposing, all that sort of stuff? How did you manage that? I know we didn't have that in our notes, but how did you manage that in your role?
Again, learning. I mean, really understanding the learner, right? So if you look at these two learning audiences, they're completely different, right? We have an installer who is very technical in nature, who just needs to know where each wire needs to go, what is the procedure for the installation, and how do you get this up and running, right?
Yep.
So he's very technical. Whereas the other part is the homeowner who has 100 million things. They have app on their phone, and I don't think. I mean, I'm a homeowner myself, or anybody, just a normal person. I don't think we've taken a manual ever in our life, right? But we need something that is really, really a dumbed down version of how to operate this huge machine sitting in my garage, right? So I had to ensure that I did not give too much of technical knowledge or technical details to the homeowner, whereas I gave a lot of technical details to the installer. So they were very different learning audiences. So when we talk about customer, and that's why I stress on the point that you really need to know that customer, or the learner, the learner per se, because customer education, learner, same thing,
Yeah.
for our purpose. And so they were different. But one thing that I managed, quite nicely, was that I broke up any kind of training into smaller, segments. I call them bite-sized content,
Yeah.
um, which was based on the methodology of rinse and repeat. So you build these modules which are really, really small and snackable in nature, and you stick them into whichever learning pathways you want. I mean, of course, some of them you have to build from the ground up, but some others you can just rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
So that definitely cut down the development times by significantly, and was able to make the product launch to different learning audiences at the same time.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's I find that with that kind of bite-sized learning approach, I guess just in my own personal experience, figuring out the right, it sounds overly surgical, but like figuring out the right duration or the right packaging of that exercise, like once you go through the exercise of doing that, the amount of time you can take to plan that up front and actually like really thoughtfully engineer that from the beginning to the end of the system, the better, because I have messed it up more times than I've gotten it right, where you end up with these super micro things that are like, okay, sweet, that's a quick fix. But
Uh-huh.
then you end up with a learning experience that has 100 steps, and nobody ever wants to do that. Or
Right.
you do the opposite and you have these 2 hour long programs. Nobody really wants to do that either.
Mhm.
So it's finding the right mix of that and then figuring out how to mix and match those things. You did something really interesting though, if I remember correctly. You not only did you have like an academy learning management infrastructure, but you also just went straight to where the users were. You went straight to YouTube. Yeah.
Absolutely. This kind of touches on the point where I think we've talked about this before, about customer enablement,
Yeah.
and how that is, how customer education is a subset of customer enablement. Because I think now we are in the age of where customer education has matured to, to something that is more performance based or performance outcome based, rather than, okay, just checking the boxes and providing training.
Yeah.
Right. So as part of that exercise, I felt that yes, we have the standard, LMS and the certification program, and on the other hand, thinking again empathetically about the learner, about the installer on the field, trying to install the system and forgot a step, and you're like, okay, now what do I do? I really don't know where to stick this wire in. And it's a crazy situation. And he's like, okay, do I go to the LMS and go and find out that exact step? Well, that's going to take a really an awful lot of time, and maybe there's no network and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
everybody has phones, right? Everybody has phones. Everybody engages with YouTube. So the idea was to build a YouTube channel and have certain steps, not the entire workflow, but certain steps that I found when I on my visits to the field that were really troublesome.
Yeah.
That were tough. That had and something that product and engineering really wanted the installers to get it right, saying that this step is really important. Ensure that you focus on that instead of it being buried inside the LMS in one of those modules. I identified some of these very critical steps and ensured that I had a YouTube video for them to engage with, to engage with at the at the field
Yeah.
or in the field, so that they can be empowered to install the systems on time.
You just mentioned the distinction between education and enablement. Do you feel that when you took the enablement approach, going straight to YouTube,
Mhm.
did that free you in any way from like the expectations of traditional education? Did you feel like operating under an enablement umbrella gave you more latitude to make a difference, or did that change anything about your execution or anything?
I don't think it changed anything about my execution, and my title did not change, but I
Yeah.
just felt I did customer
Mm.
enablement more than education, because I was coming at the program from the point of view of performance outcomes
Yeah.
rather than checkbox knowledge retention, that kind of KPI. So my KPI became different, and as the KPI became different, my approach and my strategy also trickle down to pervade the entire learning ecosystem, not just the LMS, but keeping it in at the point where they actually needed the information or needed the knowledge. We are in a TikTok, Insta Reels kind of a situation here, or in a scenario, or and it's important to know, to acknowledge that and move with the times and ensure that people are not always with their laptops and their iPads. Sometimes they're just looking at stuff on their phone, and if you
Yeah.
give them that ready accessibility at whatever point, wherever they want to engage with the content, I think you've done your job well.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Especially in the we could almost do like a whole separate follow-up in the future one day around in the field versus in the office. And it feels like organizations that have, you know, I even think about like healthcare. It's
Yeah.
not in the field necessarily, but it is very much an active experience where you're visiting patient after patient after patient. You don't have the kind of corporates, time boxing to sit down in a laptop. You're walking the labor and delivery floor, and you've got to go visit everybody there. And it's like, when are you going to have time to do that? It's like
Right.
you have 15 minutes in between something else in your shift, or if you have field technicians, you've got weather issues, you've got
Hmm.
location geography. Do I have cell
Right.
service? You have all those sorts of things to combat. And so figuring out how to design, maybe it limits all the sophistication and complexity you could dream up, but it gets you to the simplest version that could be consistently delivered. Which
It's
wins?
something that I really believe in. Keep it simple and short.
I love it. I love it. Are you
Vice
telling me to write
president.
the interview, Akila? You're like, keep it simple and short. Let's go. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, no, this I'm willing to keep it long, no problem at all. Because I
Okay.
love talking about all this.
Uh, Me too. Me too. You, I guess along those lines too, you've talked a little bit about this, or you've hinted at it, but thinking about, you mentioned performance support, you've mentioned outcome focused learning, you mentioned empathy and product design, you've mentioned enablement, thinking about all of those things. In my mind, all of that is, how do we keep the customer longer and how do we make more money
Yeah,
as a business, right? And so as you think about the shifts from in L&D, from, you know, uh, increasing, let's just say, skill set, capabilities, things like that from an internal lens, you've shifted into customer education and enablement, thinking about that from an external lens. What does a company have to believe differently for education to become something that drives revenue?
yeah, that's a big one. I think, and I think, unless we talk numbers, we don't have leadership listening to us. Let me put it
True.
that way, right? Because
Yeah.
what is the business for? We are doing business, right? And we want money to grow, money. We want the business to do well, and we have all these KPIs. We need to make $1 billion in 5 years, or it's all
Yeah.
numbers, right? So
Yeah.
I sincerely believe if we do not talk numbers, we have lost them
Mm,
you know so it is important that we tie performance, and what do we do as an L&D organization, right? It's important that we tie performance metrics or data metrics to our learning solutions, whatever program we are trying to put out there, whatever initiative it is. Put some numbers around it,
mm,
maybe like a before and after number, or some sort of I mean, not just LMS, okay, completion rates and stuff like that. That's all very superficial, but
yeah.
really focus on the satisfaction of the learner or customer satisfaction scores, but more importantly on behavior change, what they have been doing before, and once they have engaged with the learning, what has happened as a result of that. Have they changed the behavior? Are they doing things differently? And as a result of doing things differently, has their, for example, in that Sonnen's case, has the installation time reduced? Again, performance metrics. Has the number of calls to support or service reduced? Again, another performance metrics. So those kinds of things, those kinds of numbers are what is very, very vital. They're vital for leadership to be able to acknowledge
Yeah.
and give L&D a seat at the table for us because I think learning is one thing that touches every fabric of the organization. Be it employee development, or you're looking on the other side externally towards customer education. So with employee development, yes, of course, we know all the statistics and the data is there, with respect to education and leadership development and talent development and all that. But I think customer education still has some ways to go, and time our customer education initiatives to customer success metrics, I think is key for us to ensure that we
Yeah.
have leadership kind of saying, "Hey, okay, we need learning and L&D at the table or customer education at the table to discuss our sales strategy, to
Mm.
discuss our product strategy." So I think, yeah.
Interesting. So you're thinking not necessarily what does the company have to believe differently about L&D for it to be a growth driver. You're thinking, what does L&D have to believe differently to basically not convince, but to convey the
Yes.
impact they have on growth. So, and if I understood you correctly, it's figuring out the language of leadership, which is often
Mhm.
dollars and cents,
Exactly.
and figuring out, how do I align the initiatives that are important to me, the empathy that
Mhm.
I want to bring to the customer experience,
Exactly.
the empathy we want to bring to the product experience. How are we taking those things and attributing a dollar amount to it, whether it's in dollars customers retained an extra contract cycle,
Mhm.
or um, whether that's
Time to
new
value.
customers from a new market, whatever that happens to be, more partners are able to install so we can do higher
Exactly.
volumes, all those
Mhm.
types of metrics. That's
Yes,
interesting. I really
absolutely.
like that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, they're listening only when you have and fairly so, right? I mean, we can't expect them to be all superfluous and subjective about because that's what learning has been all the time. It's like, okay, we have so the only kind of metrics that we have really looked at are the completion rates, the time to completion, the modules, how much time each learner took, how do they engage with the that is probably it. Although we all talk about performance metrics, what are those metrics and how do we show it to L&D or to the leadership to ensure that hey, they think or they definitely believe or they advocate that L&D needs to be part of any strategy conversation.
Mm. Yep. Yep. I see that. I can see that. And I guess if you were going to build a new team, let's say that you are either wearing your consulting hat or you enter the next chapter and you're building a customer success team from scratch. We've talked about empathy, we've talked about attribution, those sorts of things. What key skills or like what approach would you bring to that new team? Like what is a customer success team in the future? Or maybe not that far in the future, maybe next week. Like, what is the customer success team of today's technology companies? Like, what's essential for those teams?
See, I think we are in the era of technology pervading all our lives, like AI getting into everything and doing things easier for us that we never thought possible. So I think we need to look at humans. We need to look at we as people and the skills that we bring to the table that AI cannot do replace for us. So things like empathy, things like being proactive, things like really going above and beyond somebody's work responsibilities and ensuring that um uh you know this is I know definitely this is what the customer wants because I have talked to this person and I've talked to these many people and I have data to prove it. Those kinds of skills are going to be so important going forward
Mm,
for customer success team because we have the tools, we have the technologies. It's going to do everything. Data analysis, we have a tool for that. Learning outcomes, learning modules, your SCORM packages, we have so many tools for that.
that's true.
But recognizing when and where and how to use these tools effectively to ensure that whatever we are building is impactful and really resonates with the learner is going to be so important.
I love that. And
Yeah.
every time you say learner, just for context to the audience, you're actually saying customer most often. Like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the L&D world, we have learners.
Right.
And beyond that, we have business units or whatever. But often in your context, you're thinking about the customer, a bit just complete customer centricity,
Yeah.
obsession about what the customer experience is like. That's great.
I've defined it as learner because my customers were two pronged.
Yeah.
In my previous, it was the installer, our actual customer, and then it was the homeowner or the end customer. So that's why I kind of had that distinction and kind of generalized it as learner. But yes, I meant customer.
Oh no, I love it. I love it. You wrote I got notes here, but you said something that was I wanted to remember, so I wrote it down in my notes app. You said in customer education, it's important that you understand you are actually responsible for the growth. You're not adjacent to it, you're not supporting it, but those teams are responsible for it. I align with that so well. I think like customer education wears so many hats, but we all are in the business of building trust, building brand loyalty, building community, equipping our customers to win with the product because we know that if they win with their product, they'll stay with us, they'll refer us, they'll do those things. And I was going to ask you, what does it feel like for people to own that growth? What is it, or what does it ask of the people who are in customer success or who are in customer education? what does it ask of them in this new world of customer success and enablement, um, thinking about that growth? Mm-hmm.
Yes, you put it perfectly, right? We have empathy, we have all these skills that we require of customer success leaders or managers, or or the team as such. And then we have numbers, right? Because there's no point of all this if it's not going to reflect in your numbers and the company's bottom line, right? So I think it's very important to have a fine balance of both of them. Ensure that the team understands that, okay, yes, we are here to keep our customers happy, but also going above and beyond that in order to achieve a particular number, right? So I think it's important to have that fine balance, and I think leadership, or the manager or whoever it is the one to define that, is to ensure that they build a team that has empathy, that has a lot of the values that we talked about, but also has an eye out for those performance metrics, in order to ensure and solid ways and strategies to bridge the two. Understand what I'm
Mm,
saying? So, if you're talking about empathy, and if you're talking about, how can I say, customer satisfaction, and, seeing the data and going back and working on that data, saying, hey, okay, the customer is not happy, or I see that the customer is always not always, stuck on this particular feature, you know and then the
mhm.
customer, and for the customer team to recognize that and not do anything about it, no, but going back to maybe product or engineering, translating that, ensuring that they understood, they got that message, and then relaying back to the customer, and being that liaison between the customer and product and engineering to ensure that this is being fixed, so that, not, we're not just talking about one customer, we're talking about data, right? So the
Yeah.
data should point us in that direction, so that the company's bottom line changes for the better. So I think it's important that the leadership is strong, is solid, and sees it in this kind of manner for them to be a partner in growth.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. It feels like the mix that you're saying is like, yes, with all of the support tools that we have and the tech we have, product can continue to iterate on features,
Yeah.
but they're at the end of the day, people do business with people. And the opportunity, not necessarily the role, but the opportunity that we have
Yes.
is to become a human first department, like a human led department in a world where AI could so easily route to a knowledge base. But there's
Mm-hmm.
a missed opportunity at times. There's a missed
Yep.
opportunity at times if we don't really consider how do we interject our humanness into the customer experience.
Exactly. And I don't mean that, you have customer service, the teams. I know we have AI taking over the chatbots, and, agents
Yeah,
and things of that nature. But then looking at that data and saying, hey, what's going on? What are these scripts? What are the customers interfacing? What are they like? And not just it becoming some sort of an exercise, but actually becoming a data point for you to, really, really analyze and do whatever you need to do in order to make the customers happy.
I love that. I love that. Oh my goodness. If I guess we are approaching time, I'm so appreciative again of you spending some of your Friday afternoon with me. If you had any parting words to leave with the audience, thinking about the founders, the CS leaders, the teams that are thinking about retention and trust, like how do we continue to win? What's one thing we could do differently to win in a world where people are building features faster than ever?
Mhm.
What advice would you say? What's the one thing you might leave folks to build that competitive edge?
I think that we are not in the retention business. We are not in the renewals business. We are in the business of transformation, at least from customer education perspective, right? You're in the job of taking somebody from where they are and getting them to where they want to be. So be it installer, be it customer, in terms of product adoption, what have you, right? You want them to maybe faster, smarter, and more confident than they ever thought possible. So we are in the business of transformation, and that's what great enablement does, right? It's not, and that's what great education does. So I think creating programs that are empathetic, that are data driven, and essentially at the end of all of it, or super, how can I say, like an umbrella, the humanness of it, I think is something that is going to be a game changer for organizations where they look to build,
Yeah.
businesses that scale and scale with trust.
Hey, did you happen to know the tagline of the show? There you
I
go.
saw it. I saw it. I'm like, I have to put that in.
Oh, oh, that was awesome. That was sweet. That's awesome. Um, oh my goodness, Akila, this has been a wonderful conversation. I sincerely hope that as the show continues to grow, I have the opportunity to invite you back on, and you'll come join me and share the next round of innovation and empathy and team building and all the wonderful things that you do with us and with the audience. I've really enjoyed today. Thanks for making it happen.
Thank you so much. It was so much. It was a real pleasure to be on the show and sharing these insights and sharing this knowledge that I have. I would always welcome the opportunity to speak with you. It's always been a pleasure talking to you.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, have a wonderful weekend. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
You too. Thank you so much. Bye.